I 36 female have been divorced for 3 years. My ex-husband, collapse 36, male, had an affair with my sister, Lisa, 32, female, while we were married and that ended our relationship. Caleb and I met through friends when we were 25 at a party and that's when we started dating. We were in a relationship for 3 years after which he proposed and then we got married. We had been married for about 5 years after which I finally found out that he had been cheating on me with my sister. Caleb and Alyssa met for the first time when I brought him home for dinner, 6 or maybe 7 months into our relationship. By then, we knew that we were serious about each other and decided to introduce each other to our families. I had already met his family, it was just his parents since he had no siblings. I, however, had a pretty big family. I'm the middle child. Our oldest sibling is Chris, 40, male, and he's pretty much the only person I'm speaking to from my family now. The first time that I brought Caleb home for dinner, he got along well with everybody but most of all with Alyssa. They realized that they had a lot of things in common like their favorite TV shows, books, and even the kind of cuisine that they enjoyed and they really bonded over that. I thought it was cute. I had no idea what it would turn out to be in the future. They became really good friends and I was happy that Caleb was getting along so well with my family. I also had a good relationship with Alyssa at that point in time since we were closer in age compared to Chris and I would sometimes even go out on double dates with our respective partners. We had a lot of fun times together. She had a couple of short-lived relationships while Caleb and I were together so she would bring a different guy on every date and she would even joke about how she wished Caleb had a sibling so she could just date him instead. She would occasionally make comments about how Caleb was the perfect guy and how lucky I was but I always took them as compliments, never reading too much into it because I genuinely thought that she was just praising Caleb. No, I did not see anything wrong with it. I never thought that maybe she was hinting at something because that's how much I trusted and loved her that it didn't even occur to me that maybe she had a thing for him. When Caleb proposed to me and then we got married, there was nobody happier than Alyssa. As a matter of fact, she was even the maid of honor at my wedding. So, you can imagine how hurt I was after 5 years of being together. I discovered that the two of them had been sleeping together behind my back. Before you guys asked, there was nothing going on that could have made me suspicious about the two of them. I trusted Alyssa more than anything in the world and I also trusted Caleb. In my head, they would never do anything to hurt me and I was sure of it. So for 5 years, CB and I had a really smooth sailing relationship. There were a couple of minor hiccups here and there. Like he wanted kids and I was not ready for it. He wanted me to spend less time at work but that was not an option for me because I earned more than him and the kind of lifestyle that we had, we needed my income to support ourselves financially. He thought I was too career-oriented and wanted me to be a little more laid back and no matter how hard I tried, I could not explain it to him that we absolutely needed the money both of us were earning to have a stable lifestyle. Context. I am an investment banker and it's a really demanding job. He works in marketing and he's good at his job but he's not very dedicated to it the way that I am and I'm not complaining about it. I really love my job and it helps me fulfill my dreams so why should I not work hard for it? And as for why I did not want kids, well that's an easy answer. I was not mentally or emotionally ready to be a mother and I would rather not do something at all than do a bad job of it especially when it comes to being a parent. I think if somebody is not ready to be a parent, there is no way that they should be pressured into or coerced into becoming one. I do not want to have kids and then regret my decision and I had been very clear about it right from the beginning of our relationship but he had assumed that I would change my mind as we got married and time went on. I don't know why he thought that I would change my mind since I had always said that I did not want kids anyway. These were the major bones of contention between the two of us and most of our fights, the big ones would usually be about either of these two things. Like every other couple, we would also have disagreements but we were always able to work through these. Even when we both had big fights, we would make up in the end. We knew that we were in for the long run or at least I knew that. I don't think that he and I were on the same page about it. My point is that we would fight but we would always make up. He always expressed his love for me even up until a week before I discovered that he had been cheating on me and I never had any reason to doubt his loyalty towards me since he never gave me any. However, a week after we celebrated our 5-year anniversary wedding, I found out that he had been having an affair with Lisa. Even on the day of our anniversary, he was being all cute with me at the party while we were guests and acting like I was the only person he cared about but that changed significantly after I found out that he had been cheating on me. Couple of days after we celebrated our anniversary, I was going through my wardrobe looking for something but I couldn't find it. So I decided to look in Caleb's wardrobe. I don't remember what exactly it is that I was looking for but I remember that I had a work event a few days after that and there was a very specific blazer that I was searching for. I thought that maybe I must have put it in with his clothes by mistake, so I decided to look in his wardrobe, and while looking I accidentally grabbed the bag that he had shoved right to the back of his wardrobe. Out of curiosity, I took it out and started going through it. To my shock, I realized that women's clothes were stuffed into it. After looking through a couple of items, it dawned on me that I had seen these clothes before, and I realized that these were all Alyssa's clothes. I could not make sense of what was going on, and I was in total state of confusion. I was absolutely lost because I couldn't come up with one single reasonable explanation for this. So I decided to look through his phone, something that I had never done before because I trusted him and he had never done it to me either. We had never given each other any reason to do so, but at that moment I felt like I had to do it because even if I did ask him about those clothes, he would have time to come up with an excuse and hide evidence and stuff like that. So I decided to just go for it. I knew the password to his phone and I decided to check his VMS, and sure enough, when I opened his chat with Alyssa, it was innocent initially, but when I screwed up, I noticed that the way that they were speaking to each other, friends don't speak to each other that way. They were flirting with each other, getting intimate by text and making plans to hook up, which explained all of the late nights he was working. I gathered that this affair had probably been going on for a couple of months, and coincidentally, Alyssa had come over for lunch that day, so the two of them were so lucky that I had them in the house at the same time. So I confront them together. I show them the text and the bag of clothes that I had found in his wardrobe and demanded an explanation, but instead of apologizing to me or even bothering to deny it, the two of them just said that this was none of my concern and that I had to stay out of their business. I was really taken aback by that response because obviously this was my business if my husband was cheating on me with my sister. I think it qualifies as my business. I did not hold back and I started screaming at both of them that day, but instead of reacting to any of it, they just continued to pretend that this was no big deal. Caleb even had the gall to tell me that since I was not giving him a child and neither did I bother to spend enough time with him, which was really hypocritical because neither was he willing to compromise on his lavish lifestyle and I was the one who was supporting it. But anyways, that's the reason he told me that he had to look for other options, and he and Alyssa get along really well. Alyssa said that I should actually be glad that he chose to keep it in the family instead of going elsewhere, since that would have been even more embarrassing for me. They told me that they were not going to stop, and as a matter of fact, now that I found out, they did not see any reason to hide it from me any longer. They had only been keeping this under wraps because they wanted to avoid the drama, and they were just waiting for her promotion so she could move away from here and Caleb would then follow, but she was not against the idea of revealing everything now and then and getting this over with. It was really nasty and I don't even know how I got through it all. There was not much to say after I found out the truth, since they did not seem guilty about it and I was not going to forgive him for it, that was for sure. So I decided to file for divorce, and after I told my parents, they cut the list off and Eric also stopped speaking to her. Literally nobody from our family had any ties with her after that, and they did not seem any worse off for it either. Couple of weeks after that, Alyssa moved away to Pennsylvania, which is a 9-hour drive away from here, and one-side divorce came through 3 months later. He also followed suit. He did not contest the divorce or my petition and then left everything to me. I guess he must have surmised that now that he was with Alyssa, he would not have to worry about money. She had been promoted to a better position and that meant better pay, so he did not have to worry about losing out on my wealth and the settlement that he would get from the divorce. I guess he was just in a hurry to get it over with, so he did not put up much of a fight, and I'm glad about it because that allowed me to get it over with quickly. Since then neither I nor anybody else from our family has had any contact with her. We don't know where she is. We don't know what she has been up to. We never bothered to find out. My friends who still follow her and are in touch with her know better than to talk to me about it. So to sum it up, I have no idea what's going on in her life. It's been 3 years, but I'm still trying to recover from everything and they really messed me up for good. However, I was reminded of everything a couple of days ago because of Caleb got back in touch with me. He called me up from a number that I did not recognize, and unfortunately I had the same phone number for the past couple of years and I didn't think much before answering that phone call. As soon as I picked up, I should have hung up, but curiosity got the better of me when I heard him speaking on the other end. I decided to hear him out at least. He sounded pretty desperate and upset and quickly explained to me that he was calling to ask for my help, which was really bold because for 3 years we had not been in touch and we didn't exactly end on good terms. So the least he could have done was at least to apologize to me, but he didn't do any of that and came straight to the point. He told me that Alyssa had been in a car accident a few weeks ago and couldn't move since she had fractured both her legs and her arms were all bruised up a couple of months ago, and they have a 2-year-old son that needed to be taken care of. He told me that he had already tried to get his friends there to take over, but all of them were busy and none of them were willing to take on such a huge responsibility, and he couldn't handle everything on his own since he also had to go to work and try to earn more now that Alyssa was going to be on bed rest for quite some time and couldn't go to work. They had to make sure that Alyssa was taken care of, and handling both a 2-year-old child and Alyssa who was so severely injured was not his cup of tea. They had thought about hiring a full-time nurse, but even that was out of their budget since the area that they lived in was quite expensive. So now they were relying on their family to help them out. They had already called my parents, but they said that they were too old now or they would definitely have agreed to it. My in-laws were not an option anymore since my father-in-law had passed away just a year ago, and my mother-in-law lives in Canada with her sister, so she won't be able to help even if she wants to, and they had also called Eric because he had said that he wanted nothing to do with them and they did not trust anybody else enough to let them take over the duties of taking care of their son while they were indisposed apart from me, since neither of them was particularly close with their extended family. So as a last resort, they were literally begging me to help them out, and after years of holding it in, I finally had my moment. After he was done telling me about all of this, I just told him that I couldn't help him because it was not my business, and then I hung up and blocked his number. I didn't even bother to get into the details of it and just left it at that. Eric thinks that I did the right thing, but unfortunately my parents don't quite agree with that. They think that 3 years have passed and now I should be over it, especially since Luther is going through something so horrible and I should be there for him. I don't even understand what they're going on about because they think I'm being stubborn by refusing to help them, and I think that they are being ridiculous by even expecting me to help them after what they did to me. I feel bad for the kids, I really do, but again, that's not my problem. They insist I'm being selfish and stubborn and I should at least consider it before saying no. It has been a couple of days and my parents are really getting to me because now I'm not sure if I did the right thing or not. I wouldn't have felt bad for them, but there is a child involved and that's why I am rethinking my decision. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister and my ex-husband out with taking care of their son since he had cheated on me with her? Update 1. Hey everyone. I just wanted to drop in and give a big thanks to all of you who took the time to comment on my last post. Your words and support have been incredibly valuable during this challenging time. I really appreciate it, and I wanted to update you all on what's been happening since then. So here's the scoop. I've decided to firmly stick with my decision to stay out of the drama that's been unfolding with my parents and their demands. It's been a tough call, but I feel confident it's the right one for me. Just to recap a bit for anyone new here or those who might not remember all the details. This whole situation started when my parents expected me to step in and take responsibility for a family issue that I felt was not mine to solve. This involved my brother's family, specifically his child, during a time when he and his wife were going through some serious challenges, including health issues. I told my parents that I appreciated their perspective but that I couldn't involve myself in the way they wanted. I explained that it was important for me to maintain boundaries for my own well-being. Unfortunately, they didn't take it well. They believe I should just move past old hearts and step up, ignoring how deeply those past issues affected me. When I communicated my decision to stay out of it, they were pretty upset. They accused me of being selfish and stubborn and couldn't believe I was taking such a firm stand. Despite their reaction, I explained that as an adult, I have the right to make choices about my own life, including deciding how I interact with family matters. They didn't see it that way and decided to cut ties with me, saying that since I wasn't willing to help, I was essentially choosing to be out of the family. Emotional impact. This has been really hard on me emotionally. Being called selfish and seeing my parents so upset with my choices has been painful. However, I've come to realize that protecting my mental health and setting healthy boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary. Thankfully, I have an amazing support system. My partner Eric has been incredible through all of this. He's busy with a new project at work, so we haven't had a chance to fully discuss everything yet, but I know he supports me. He's seen firsthand how much strain this has put on me and has always encouraged me to do what's best for my health and happiness. Looking back, I know that if I had agreed to take on the responsibility my parents were pushing on me, it would have set a precedent that I was available to handle any issue they didn't want to deal with. That's not a position I want to be in. It's important for my parents to understand that they are capable of supporting my brother themselves, especially since they are still active and in good health. They're in their early 60s, which is certainly capable of providing support to my brother and his family. As for what comes next, I'm focusing on maintaining peace in my own life and continuing to build a future with Eric. We're saving money, living responsibly, and planning for a stable and happy future together. As for my family, I hope they find a way to resolve their issues in a way that doesn't involve unfairly leaning on others. Thanks again for all your support and advice. If anyone has gone through something similar or has any insights on dealing with difficult family dynamics, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Navigating family expectations and personal boundaries is tough, but I believe we can find our way through with the right support and clear communication. Update 2. Hey everyone. I wanted to give a bit of an update and get some things off my chest about the ongoing family drama that's been unfolding. It's been about a week and a half since Caleb, my brother, tried to reconnect with me. Right after his attempt, I decided to block him because I just couldn't handle more stress from that side of the family. Since then, he hasn't been able to reach out directly, but that hasn't stopped the attempts from their end. Eric, my partner, has been on the receiving end of relentless messages from Caleb and even Lisa. They've been trying to get through to him, bombarding him with texts, which he's been systematically ignoring. He leaves their messages unread, choosing not to engage, which I think is for the best given everything. A couple of days ago, Eric and I sat down for a serious chat about everything that's been happening. During our conversation, he revealed that he's decided to cut off contact with our parents as well. They've been incredibly unreasonable and selfish throughout this ordeal. Ironically, this is what they accused me of when I first decided to distance myself from the family issues. It seems like they're now experiencing a bit of what they've put out themselves. Honestly, it's a situation where they've isolated themselves by their actions and now they don't even have Eric to fall back on. This whole scenario has made me reflect on their behavior over the years. Our parents still have the opportunity to mend things with Alyssa, their daughter-in-law, but I'm skeptical about whether they'll take responsibility for their grandson given their track record. It's unlikely. They often proclaim love for family, but when it comes to actually showing up and putting in the effort, they're absent. This isn't the first time their lack of support has been apparent. There was an incident a few years back involving Eric's elder son, who had a bad fall at the playground and fractured his wrist. He was about 4 years old at the time. With Eric's business going through a rough patch, he had asked our parents if they could lend him some money for a physiotherapist to help his son once the cast was removed. Their response was a flat refusal. They justified it by saying they were getting older and needed to save for their retirement. So, they couldn't just give out money as if it were charity. Eric took their refusal respectfully and didn't bring it up again, but it always struck me as particularly selfish. It's not surprising to me that they're not stepping up now with their grandkids. It's disappointing but expected. I worry about the future and how this will affect their relationship with Eric and Alyssa's children. If Eric and Alyssa decide to restrict their interactions with the grandkids, it would be understandable after all. If our parents aren't willing to contribute positively and supportively, why should they expect to have unfettered access to the grandkids, despite everything? As much as I have my differences with Alyssa, I truly hope that they manage to find a solution that works for their family. It's a tough situation for everyone involved, and the kids shouldn't have to suffer because of adult issues. This situation has been taxing, but discussing it here helps me to process everything and consider my next steps. I'd really appreciate any advice from those who might have faced similar family dynamics or have insights into handling such complicated relationships. How do you maintain your sanity and principles in the face of family pressure and manipulation? Thanks for listening, it means a lot to be able to share and get support from this community. Update: this is going to be a pretty long update. Almost 2 months have passed since I received news of the accident that had taken place with Alyssa. I haven't heard from them directly, but I have kept in touch with Eric, and he is the one who is giving me all of this information. I told him that I would be fine with it if he kept in touch with Alyssa and responded to her messages because, honestly, I was not feeling too good about the situation. I don't like Alyssa, that's true, and I absolutely love Caleb. But at the same time, I am not heartless enough to wish anything bad to happen to them. I know that their 2-year-old son has had no part to play in all of the evil things that they have done in the past, and so I told Eric to keep in touch with Alyssa and help her out if she needed it. They were bad people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to stoop down to their level. I already got my revenge, I refused to help them, and that was it. But families are complicated, and I can't bring myself to wish bad things on anybody, no matter what they have done to me. That's just not my nature. I feel like I have to defend my decision since people can be judgmental sometimes, but anyway, I digress. 2 weeks ago, he finally got in touch with them and asked them how things were going. Alyssa told him that things were pretty bad. They were having to rely on a daycare to take care of their son, which was burning a hole into their pockets because the neighborhood they lived in was pretty expensive. It was not an option for them to drive several hours away from where they lived back and forth every day since Caleb also had to work, and she could not do anything for herself anymore. So, it was really bad. On top of that, They were falling behind on rent and were at risk of being evicted, which hadn't happened so far just because she was severely injured. The landlord was kind enough to give them an extension for a couple of months, but after that, they definitely had to pay up the money or leave the house. She didn't know where she was going to get all that cash from. She had asked her parents for help, but they had refused again, saying that they wanted to save up for the future. I can understand that they want to save for any future medical emergencies or whatever, but it's not like we are never going to return the money back to them. We haven't ever been like that. I don't understand why they are always so skeptical and weird about money when it comes to their own kids. It's not like we are thieves. However, this time when my parents said no to helping her out, she lost her mind and told them that she was cutting them out of her life. This time, she was going to be the one who was not going to speak to them ever again. And as much as it is Caleb and Alyssa, I think they made the right decision. They are toxic, but so are my parents. It's a wonder how Eric and I turned out right, given the fact that we were surrounded by such people. But anyway, my parents are not going to have any access to either of their grandkids for the next couple of years, that's for sure, and they are going to have nobody else to blame but themselves. They're not even going to have any access to their kids now that you think about it. Since I am not speaking to them, Eric is not talking to them anymore, and neither is Alyssa. From this point onwards, they pretty much are on their own. I can't say that they don't deserve it. I definitely don't feel bad for them now. Coming to Alyssa and Caleb, Eric and I discussed things that were going on with them, and I told him that I would not have a problem if he wanted to help them. My conscience would not allow me to stand in the way of that. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it personally. I'm going to stay out of their business, like they said, but I'm also not going to discourage anybody if they want to help them. Eric told me that so far he had not been on speaking terms with her just because what she had done to me was so wrong. But now it's very difficult to be mad at her because, in spite of everything that has happened, she was in a really difficult position, and as her older brother, he could not just sit by and watch his nephew suffer. He knew for a fact that Alyssa's son was having a really difficult time dealing with all of this emotionally. So, we decided that he was going to send some money to them every month until they were able to get back on their own 2 feet. I'm actually glad that he's doing it because I know that nobody had taken a stand for him when he was going through a difficult time. My parents did not do anything for him, and I tried to contribute to him financially when he was going through a slump in his business, and so had Alyssa, but we also had to look out for ourselves, and we were not in a position like our parents. They are pretty well off, so they could afford to do it again. I'm not trying to sound entitled, but they could have helped out, but they did not. And even though Alyssa and I were not exactly in a position to be philanthropists, we still tried to help. So now, I guess it's only fair that Eric returns the favor and helps her out as well, regardless of what she did to me. I'm never going to move on from that, but whatever. My major concern was that my nephew would be suffering, but now that it's out of the way, I can go back to never thinking about them again. I honestly just don't want anything to do with either Alyssa or Caleb. I'm really sorry that something so bad happened to them, but now I want to move on with my life. I think this was the closure that I needed because even during the divorce, I still hadn't felt like I was done with it as much as I do now. I'm going to just focus on my work and my own life and try to improve everything about myself without worrying about other people anymore. I don't have to deal with any other toxic people since I'm no longer in touch with my parents either, and I'm pretty happy about it.